Welcome to the Flex Forward podcast, where grit meets growth. With your host, Nic Espanet, bringing you stories of resilience, reinvention, and the real climb to success.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Flex Forward podcast. Today, we're joined by Charles Gills. Charles is the executive director at Platt Richmond, and I'm going to let him give a little more about what he does there. But I look forward to hearing more about what he does and just how he's been able to achieve what he's been able to achieve. Charles, welcome to the Flex Forward podcast. Can you let our guests know a little more about you?
For sure. Thank you so much, Nick. I have been a legal administrator, a legal business manager for about 34 years now. Lawyers are capable of doing any manner of business operations management, but what we have found is when we get them to focus on the most important task, practicing law, developing their practice, firms usually make a little more money, a little more efficient and effective. So my job is to help lawyers be the best lawyers they can be and to run the operations so that they don't have to worry about recruiting and IT and marketing issues, licenses and whatnot, leases. We handle all that for them. I actually began in legal as a college student, a penniless college student. My first job was as a courthouse runner. And so I started in law firms about 5 years before email was widely adopted in the legal industry. So everything was paper-based, and you had a filing at the courthouse, you printed up a bunch of copies, and some young person ran them over to the courthouse and got them stamped in triplicate, and that was me. So I worked my way up from that position into various positions. Got into management, and probably 10 years into it, I realized there's no way of getting out. I thought maybe I would be a teacher as a student, but by the time I graduated college, I was already an office manager, and it just turned out to be a great career.
That's awesome. Kind of stuck with it through that time. So, what do you think? Obviously, they saw something in you that, as a college student, you hadn't completed your degree, but that they moved you into the office manager. What do you think set you apart from maybe other people that were doing it?
I worked two jobs. I got to Austin with about $100 in my pocket. So I got the cheapest place I could live, about a block off a airport runway, and put myself through school at kind of a half rate. I couldn't even afford to go full time.
Gotcha.
And so I took advantage of every overtime opportunity that was ever presented. And in these junior roles, a lot of the positions were sort of political hires, children of clients, children of partners, good people, but not terribly motivated to put in the extra hours. So I jumped on every project and eventually was sort of recognized for that effort. And then they gave me bigger projects. And I got promoted to the file room, and then a case clerk, and into admin, eventually assistant administrator. And when the firm I was at expanded to another market, they tapped me to be the office manager. So I relocated and opened that office for them. So really, at the beginning, it was just working as hard as I possibly could and stepping up anytime the call for help was issued.
No, and I think that's a great lesson for when you're hustling like that. It will be recognized that you're the hardest worker in the room, or one of the hardest workers. So just being able to, stepping up, volunteering when there is extra stuff to be done, and I think nowadays younger people, that can be a challenge within the workforce. So you really would be a shining light if you come out and do that. Just having that resilience and persistence, I think, is important. Was there something that you found easy, that came to you easier than others, that others may have found challenging during that time?
I think thinking outside of the box was really helpful. And when you're making $5 or $6 an hour, there's not a whole lot of expectation. One of the first projects that got attention, this firm was 25 years old or so, and they had moved around several times. When they first started off, they had very small office. And so pretty common for law firms back in the paper-intensive days to store boxes offsite. Just reams and reams of paper, research, court filings, and whatnot. And over the years, there was a database that was lost. And so for 20 years, the firm had been paying for hundreds of boxes to be stored. And because there were thousands of boxes stored, nobody paid attention. And I found an old file, and I'm like, what is this? And they're like, no, we don't touch that. Don't worry about it. And I thought, well, okay, I'm going to come in one weekend and do some research. So I called back about 20 of these boxes from offsite, and they were full of Christmas decorations from a quarter century ago. So the firm, when it first started off, the partners were themselves just getting started in their careers, and their first Christmas, everybody just brought leftover bits and bobs
Stuff from their
decorations. Homes. When they moved, they shipped it all off site, thinking they'll pull it back when they get to the new site, and they never did. And so for 2 decades, they paid to store this stuff. And I brought it back, and then we realized there's hundreds of boxes that can be, destroyed.
Pulled out, yeah.
And so after a few weekends, it's like, well, we've saved $1,000 worth of storage. And so eventually I learned a very important thing, which is to pay your freight. So anytime you can produce savings for the firm, like the firm felt okay giving me a raise or a promotion or a bonus because like I helped save them tens of thousands of dollars. And I carry that through to this day.
I love that. That's kind of the theory of make the company need you more, than you need them, and you created value in what you were doing, and you found value outside of your normal scope of work. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So if any of our listeners today want to know maybe something that helped you get to where you are, either podcasts, books, something along those lines, do you have any suggestions for them?
Well, I think one of the first things that really helped me was being able to recognize when I was given a good mentoring opportunity. And just like I talk to students all the time, there's always professionals that are willing to help. And sometimes it's not absolutely clear to younger people what is being offered. So when I started, the first time I was an assistant administrator, I was brought in and very skilled, experienced director, and she said, "Here's what I want you to do. When a partner comes into this office, sit in the corner and just shut your mouth and listen." And I thought, well, okay, that's a bit harsh. But actually, what I figured out very quickly was once the partner would come in, have an issue, they would talk through it, and then they would leave. And then I got the postmortem. And she would say, okay, let me explain what just happened and why. And that was incredibly valuable. So I did look for other people as I progressed in my career that were sort of willing to share that information. I reached a point as a solo administrator or the primary administrator for a small firm. I did it for about 5 years and realized I'm working so hard. There's got to be more information that can help me do things better. So I went and got my MBA.
Okay.
And that was a game changer because a lot of the issues that took me a considerable amount of time, I figured out, okay, I can streamline this. There's a better way, better process. And the education, not just from the program itself, but from the fellow classmates. So at that point, I did management for a while. So I did the executive MBA program at UT Dallas. And so my classmates were business owners and senior executives. So I learned just as much from those folks as I did from the program, which made my life a whole lot easier. Also in the program, we traveled to different cities and met with different business leaders. And we went to a really big law firm in Washington, D.C., and that firm hired me after I graduated. So,
oh, nice. Are you still in the D.C. area?
Yeah. It was a great opportunity, but kind of putting yourselves in those situations sometimes creates the opportunities.
No, that's great. Yeah, getting out there and doing something different. So, and I liked you talked about your mentors too. Just having mentors, I think, is, and be it physical fitness or health type things or business or relationships, having somebody that's already walked down that path is definitely a great value.
Absolutely.
So what is one of the biggest challenges you've overcome in your career?
So starting off in an industry like legal, particularly in larger firms, they want to hire people with larger firm credentials. And so it can be exceptionally hard to break in. And part of the way that I was able to sort of get from small mid-sized firms into big law, into larger international firms, was to work different opportunities within the industry through voluntary bar associations or speaking at law schools about sort of the recruiting process for young lawyers. And then I started to write quite a bit for legal trade publications.
Okay.
Columns for Canadian Lawyer magazine. I wrote articles for ABA, Student Lawyer. And eventually, I had so many questions from young students or new lawyers. I just wrote a book about it, and I put that out. And that has been sort of kind of a nonstop source of connections and inquiry and speaking opportunities. So I sort of worked my way into it because, the barrier of entry is very high for billion-dollar law firms. And even though they may say, oh, we're open to all candidates, they really want to hire from like their closest competitors.
Gotcha. Yeah. And you got to get your foot in the door. And that sounds like you're very creative on finding ways to get your name out there. So, finding a solution, then, that comes back to the resilience. And, we talked about on the Flex Forward podcast is finding a way, even though somebody may tell you it's not possible, it sounds like you went out and found a solution on how to do it. So that's awesome.
Thank you.
But sounds like things are going pretty well in business. And, it's a lot of times as people start, having more and more success, they start considering passive income to either replace or supplement their current. You have any thoughts on passive income?
Well, I think it's very important, and particularly in this industry for both lawyers and management, because there is a tendency for folks to sort of have a wind down path at the end. If they're fortunate, if they've had a good career, you can definitely benefit by utilizing the connections and the resources, even when you're no longer like in the office every day. Mm-hmm. And so, there's a lot of 80-something, lawyers, 80-year-old plus lawyers out there that are still actively engaged, maybe in enough counsel capacity. I have put a lot of my effort into teaching and to writing, just because that is a lot of fun for me. And it's something that I can do, even when I'm not putting in the type of hours that I'm doing now. We've invested a bit. I do a lot of work with Canadian companies, and that my connection in that space really I began as a tourist 25 years ago. And it's now extended to the point where I'm so connected with the business community up there and different opportunities that I was the chairman of the Canada-Texas Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, neat.
I work with private and public sectors and was recently designated by the Canadian Trade Service Commission as a Canada's Global Executive, which is kind of an honor for a native Texan.
Sure, that's awesome.
That just following what we enjoy doing. And traveling up there has created opportunities.
Great stuff. So as we're wrapping up, do you have any exciting plans or initiatives in the works for the next 6 to 12 months?
So I am very excited about the direction of the firm that I'm at. And so, my prior position to coming to this firm, I was a chief administrative officer of a 260 lawyer firm. And I came back to Texas to help build a 10 lawyer firm. But I didn't come here to run a 10 lawyer firm. I came here to help scale the firm.
Oh, nice.
And so under the leadership of our managing partner, we've got a great group of folks here. We've tripled in size, record revenue every year. And we have some really exciting things coming up with our growth that we're planning for next year. So it's just, it's full steam ahead here at Platt Richmond. I couldn't be happier with the team that we've built, and we've got some great stuff coming up here.
That's exciting. Glad to hear it. And it sounds like it's going very well. Great. Well, Charles, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing some tips and insights with our guests. If people wanted to connect with you to find out more about what it is you're doing, what's the best way for them to do that?
So you can find me on plattrichmond.com. I'll be on the admin page there. But I've been on LinkedIn for more than 20 years. So I'm always happy to connect with people on that platform as well.
Awesome. Great stuff. Thank you so much. And thanks everyone for tuning into the Flex Forward podcast. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you, Nick.
Thanks for listening to the Flex Forward podcast. If you've got grit, growth, and a great story, visit flexforwardpodcast.com/guest to apply and join us on the show.